I remember walking out of the clinic a few years ago, holding a small slip of paper that felt heavier than it looked. It was a prescription for amlodipine. The doctor had spent exactly 7 minutes with me, glanced at the numbers on the monitor, scribbled on his pad, and told me this would bring my blood pressure down. He patted me on the shoulder and sent me on my way. I went to the pharmacy, picked up the orange bottle, and started swallowing one small white pill every single morning. For a long time, I took a strange kind of comfort in that routine. I thought I was handling my business. I thought that little pill was a magic shield that would protect my heart from the decades of hard work and heavy Southern meals I had put it through. I had absolutely no idea what that drug was actually doing inside my chest, or how much danger I was still in, because I was relying entirely on a chemical to do the work of a lifestyle. Most people wait for a scare before they change. My scare was not a dramatic trip to the emergency room. It happened quietly in my own hallway. I came home after a long afternoon of running errands around Charlotte, sat down heavily in my armchair, and reached down to untie my shoes. When I pulled my socks off, I stared at my legs in horror. My ankles were swollen so thick they looked like they belonged to another man. The elastic of my socks had left deep red trenches pressed hard into my skin, and the tissue felt tight and heavy. A cold spike of pure panic hit my chest. I thought my heart was finally giving out. I thought the fluid was backing up because the engine was failing. I am going to tell you the truth about what amlodipine is actually doing to your cardiovascular system. The hidden physical side effects that drive so many men to quietly stop taking their medication, and the specific heavy-lifting daily changes I made to stop relying on a piece of paper to save my life. When I was managing operations for the public transit system, I learned very quickly that you cannot properly maintain a massive diesel engine if you do not understand how its internal plumbing works. You do not just pour a solvent into the tank without knowing what it does to the pressure lines. But for years, I treated my own body with less respect than a city bus. I took the pill because I was told to. It was my daughter Danielle, who works in nutrition and understands the mechanics of the body, who finally sat me down and explained the biology of my medication in terms a stubborn man could actually respect. To understand what this drug does, you have to look closely at the pipes. Your blood vessels are not just hollow plastic tubes. They are wrapped in a very thin, incredibly strong layer of muscle. When that muscle squeezes, the vessel gets narrow. When the vessel gets narrow, your heart has to pump with a desperate, heavy force just to push the blood through the restricted space. That extra force, that violent pushing against tight pipes, is exactly what high blood pressure is. Your heart is redlining every single minute of the day just to keep the fluid moving. But for those muscle walls to squeeze tight, they need a specific chemical trigger. They need calcium to enter the muscle cells. The calcium flows through tiny, microscopic gates in the cell wall, and the moment it gets inside, the muscle violently contracts. This is where the medication goes to work. Amlodipine is what they call a calcium channel blocker. It literally travels through your bloodstream, finds those tiny gates in the muscle walls, and wedges itself inside them. It physically blocks the calcium from getting in. Without the calcium, the muscle simply cannot squeeze. The pipes relax. The walls open up, and the heavy, dangerous pressure on your heart finally comes down. When Danielle explained that mechanism to me, the terrifying swelling in my ankles suddenly made perfect sense. My heart was not failing. When the medication forces those pipes to relax and widen, the pressure dynamics inside your legs change. A small amount of fluid inevitably leaks out of the tiny vessels in your lower legs and pools in the surrounding tissue. Gravity does the rest. It gets worse at the end of the day, especially if you have been standing on concrete or dealing with the humid summer heat. It is an annoying, uncomfortable side effect, but it is the direct mechanical result of the drug keeping the pipes open. It is not a sign of a dying heart. If nobody tells you that, you panic. You stop taking the pill. You put your life at risk because the system did not take the time to explain the machinery to you. Some men also feel a sudden, intense warmth flushing across their face during the first few weeks of taking the pill. It feels like a flash of heat rising up the neck. That is just the newly widened vessels, allowing more warm blood to flow right beneath the surface of the skin. It settles down as the body adjusts. I also learned that unlike other blood pressure medications, this specific pill does not cause that dry, hacking cough that tortures so many older adults. Knowing these details gave me my confidence back, but the relief of understanding my medication quickly turned into a hard realization. Amlodipine is a wedge. It forces the door open. It does a beautiful, necessary job of bringing the numbers down and reducing the immediate risk of a stroke. But it does absolutely nothing to fix the underlying rot that caused the pressure to spike in the first place. High blood pressure is not a chemical deficiency of amlodipine. It is the result of carrying too much weight, holding on to too much stress, sitting for too long, and eating food heavily cured in salt. I thought the pill was my free pass. I thought I could keep eating the heavy sodium-rich foods I grew up loving because the medication was handling the numbers. I was wrong. Pressure rarely goes up alone. It rises with the habits we ignore. By relying entirely on that little orange bottle, I was forcing the drug to fight a battle that my daily lifestyle was making harder every single day. I was managing the crisis, but I was completely ignoring the cause. That is when Marcus, my son, challenged me to look at what I was putting on my plate. We started reading the clinical data on a specific, structured way of eating called the DASH approach, designed entirely to stop hypertension. It is not some internet gimmick or a temporary starvation routine. It is a permanent return to whole grains, heavy vegetables, fresh fruit, and ruthlessly cutting out the hidden sodium that acts like liquid rust inside your cardiovascular lines. The numbers in the research stopped me in my tracks. When you actually commit to eating that way consistently, it can drop your top blood pressure number by 5 to 10 points. That is roughly the exact same biological heavy lifting as a standard starting dose of amlodipine. Let that sink in for a moment. The food you decide to put into your body can literally act with the same mechanical force as a prescribed pharmaceutical, without a single swollen ankle or flushed face. Gloria and I went to work. We cleared the pantry. We stopped buying the processed meats and the canned soups that were loaded with hidden salt. We started eating meals that actually supported the vessel walls instead of constantly stiffening them. I did not stop taking my medication. You never abruptly pull the wedge out of the door without a doctor monitoring your system. But I stopped expecting the medication to do all the work by itself. The pill and the lifestyle are not enemies. They are two hands holding on to the exact same steering wheel. There was one final trap I had to navigate, and it is a mistake so many of us make while trying to be healthy. Down in the South, a fresh grapefruit with breakfast feels like a deeply healthy habit. But grapefruit contains a natural compound that actively stops your liver from breaking down amlodipine. If you eat the fruit while taking the pill, the drug builds up in your bloodstream to a level far higher than the doctor ever intended. A completely natural, seemingly healthy breakfast choice was quietly interfering with my cardiovascular machinery. I had to learn to protect the medication so it could protect me. I still take my pill every single day. I take it at the exact same time because consistency is what keeps the pressure steady and the pipes relaxed. But I no longer take it blindly. I know exactly what it is doing to the microscopic gates in my muscle cells. I know why I need to prop my feet up on a cushion when my ankles feel heavy at the end of a long day. I know why the vegetables on my dinner plate are just as critical as the prescription sitting in my bathroom cabinet. A stable life builds a stable body. The medical system will hand you the tools to survive an emergency, but it is entirely up to you to build a routine that actually lets you live. I am sitting here today, watching the seasons change, keeping the lines clear, and making sure my heart has everything it needs to keep beating without a struggle. We only get one engine for this long ride. It is time we learned exactly how to maintain it.